Hi, everybody. If you are a regular subscriber to this channel and a regular viewer of my videos, you will know that I cover privacy projects, and I'm going to be covering a brand new privacy project in this video. If you're not a regular subscriber and a viewer to my channel, why not? Anyway, we're going to be finding out about a new privacy project in this video.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Get the Crypto.com Visa card. You can use this wherever Visa is accepted all over the world. Make sure you use my link to get a $25 bonus when you register. Link in the description below. Hey, Reuben, thank you so much for making yourself available.
By the way, we are not new. We have been around since 2016.
You're not new. You're new to me.
Yeah.
New to my channel. But that's a good thing. You've been around since 2016.
Yeah, so we used to be called something called Zcoin. Because we were the first project to use the Zcoin protocol. That's different from the zero cash protocol. It's a common misconception that we are a fork of Zcash, and that's kind of why we rebranded, because everyone was saying that we are a fork of Zcash, even though we were doing really groundbreaking research on our site. So we're like, look, we have to stand on our own. Our technology really should stand on its own, and that's one of the reasons why we rebranded to Firo since like 2020. Yeah.
Okay, wow. So it's new to my channel. I've known about Zcoin because I've been covering doing videos since April 2017. So I've known about Zcoin, but it's not one I followed. I may have at some point even held a little Zcoin in 2017 or something, and then moved on. So Firo, F-I-R-O, formerly Zcoin. Reuben, you're one of the team there. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for making yourself available. And for anybody who's watching, please subscribe, comment, like, follow me on Twitter, CryptoReachYT, join my official Telegram announcement channel. And if you're watching this on YouTube, a couple of things to know. One is you're seeing this late because I post my videos on Odyssey first. So you'll get it up to date on Odyssey first. And that's because YouTube is shadow banning me on both my YouTube channels. Thank you, YouTube. Right? That's quite an accomplishment. So please do follow me on Odyssey and support my work. All right. So Reuben, what do you do at Firo?
So I'm the project steward. I think we're the first persons that come up with this title, and now other projects have started adopting it. So that's quite cool. But the project steward is like, although we are core developers or we are like core team, we are looking after the project for the community. I mean, like coins are, community makes the coin, right? If there's no community, you can have the best tech and there's nothing, right? And we realize that while we are, we do the hard work, we are stewarding the project, right? But at the end, we are not like leaders, right? We can like guide, right? Obviously we have to listen to the community, and that's why we have specifically chosen not like CEO or something like that, or head or lead. We want to, I am just the steward. I'm looking after this project for the community. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. Yeah.
You were steering the project, looking after it for the community. And just a few quick questions. Is it a decentralized community-based project?
Mm-hmm. More or less. Like, so obviously there's several ways to approach it, but we have a 15% of the block reward comes to the core team. Right. Mm-hmm. Of course, that gets reviewed every 2 years. We ask the community, hey, are you satisfied? Do you want to reduce us? Do you want to remove us or stuff like that? So that's open, right? But 85% goes towards the community, either be it through running the masternodes or mining. So in that sense, it's decentralized. Obviously, there are some people like, oh, dev tax means you're centralized and stuff like that, which I totally understand. But I do think there are pros and cons, which we can probably talk about later. It's a more nuanced thing. Yeah.
I can get the cons because anybody who's a regular subscriber to my channel will know that I'm one of the crew at Pirate Chain, and I did tell Reuben this. And Pirate Chain is a fully decentralized project, and there's no dev tax. So then the challenge that Pirate Chain has is we have to ask for donations if we want an exchange listing or something. So there's advantages and disadvantages to having some of the rewards go to the team or not. I get it.
Yeah, and it's also like, this is the point, not that I'm, hitting on Pirate Chain and stuff like that, but it also had Pirate Chain, like while, there's been no pre-mine or anything like that, it did have a very accelerated emission, right? Which was also mineable by ASIC. So that was if you want to get into quibbles, you can say that's not decentralized as well. But you guys were open about it, right? They were like, this is the emission curve, you like it or not, this is what it is. While we follow more like a Bitcoin, very long emission cycle. So even though we are since 2016, we're only halfway being emitted, right? So it's not even close to 90% or something, which Pirate Chain is. So there's pros and cons, right? It does mean that, over time, it is kind of more decentralized because there's less of an early adopter advantage because, everyone has time to get to know the project and stuff like that, right? And we have been very, very big fervent supporters of GPU mining, commodity hardware mining, not ASIC based and stuff like that. So that can also be seen as another form of decentralization instead of having hard to get ASICs.
Sure.
That's why I say it's nuanced. Yeah.
Just on that, right? Just to correct, and then we're going to and then we'll move on to Zcoin because I got some particular questions about that. Right? Is Pirate Chain uses the equihash algorithm and it's GPU, not ASIC.
Really, it's not the same algorithm as Zcash because I remember
it's
equihash.
Komodo. It's a fork of Komodo, and Komodo's on GPU. But anyway, enough, right? So
right, yeah.
So it's a proof of work when
hybrid.
Hybrid. Okay,
it's a hybrid. Yeah.
Well. Okay,
yes, that's right.
Launched in 2016. Did it and just release the code, or was there an ICO?
So there were two seed investors initially. It was Roger Ver was one of them. Another one, he's quite a prominent guy, but he chose to remain anonymous, and we respect that. Mm-hmm. And we didn't raise a lot of money. It was like $100,000 or something like that. And this was pre-ICO. There's no such thing as ICOs in 2016. So unfortunately, within 1 month of launch, the co-founder ran away with all the seed money. So yeah, although we raised $100,000, we suffered a huge setback because of that. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was how it was funded.
And then what is the emission rate and the total number of coins?
So it's 21.4 million. But it follows a similar cycle to Bitcoin, and 400,000 extra was because of an early bug that was exploited, and therefore there's this additional supply. But it was fully disclosed and happened within a few months of launch. So we probably disclosed it and stuff like that, but we had to add to the supply just to kind of maintain things. Yeah. Okay,
and was it a fork of something or a brand new blockchain?
It's a brand new blockchain. We did use something what we call the Zcoin library, which was an initial cryptographic library that was implementation of the Zcoin protocol, and then we took that, did all the implementation, did a lot of fixes, did a lot of stuff to get it to production quality, I guess. But it's not a fork or anything. We were the first coin to launch with this thing, and back then, there was something called Pivax, which was also very famous at one point, and they were using Zcoin. And for a very good part, for I think 2017, 2018, Zcoin was probably the third most used privacy protocol after RingCT and ZK Snark stuff. So it was generally successful until there was a cryptographic flaw that we found in the Zcoin protocol. Now that was a very interesting experience if you want to go down that path. But yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah.
Oh my God! And was it something that undermined the privacy of it?
No, it allowed inflation. And what was really interesting was we caught it so the damage was quite mitigated, but and we also disclosed this to all the other projects using Zcoin. So we actually saved a lot of projects because we could have just used it and attack it, or just kept this fixed to ourselves and just cover it up, right? But we did the right thing. We did responsible disclosure. We actually got screwed over by one of the projects who did a premature disclosure, but I think it's water under the bridge. But it was a very interesting scenario. But what actually happened is that although we could have fixed it, we were already moving to something else, which was the Sigma protocol, which removes the trusted setup requirement from the Zcoin protocol. So we're why fix something that we were already in the midst of moving away from? So although there probably are ways to fix Zcoin, I think Ergo uses kind of a combination. They use something called Zero Join, which combines CoinJoin and Zcoin. no one uses Zerocoin right now, with the exception of a variant being used by Ergo, which I think is a BPSAA member as well, right? Ergo?
Yes. Ergo and Pirate Chain are both members of the Blockchain Privacy, Security and Adoption Line.
That's right.
Yes, okay.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
BPSAA. Okay. Now, what is so special about Firo as a privacy coin and as a cryptocurrency?
Right. So I think we are one of the very few projects that are actually developing our own privacy protocol with a lot of academic rigor, right? Like, it's not just like, publish a paper and figure it out. We have audits, not only audits, we have cryptographic reviews. We go through the peer review process. All of that happens. And if you take a look at the market right now, there are only, there are a lot of privacy coins, but very few of them develop their own privacy protocols. There's Zcash with their, ZK Snarks with their Halo 2, right? There's Monero, which didn't technically develop ring CT, ring signatures, but they really develop it and improve it, ring CT and whatever they're using now. So, maybe they can be considered pioneers with the ring CT type of model, right? And then you have the Mimblewimble coins, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's us, right? Because they aren't really that many privacy protocols out there. And I guess having the ability to own the kind of privacy protocol in the sense that we know it inside out, right? And we kind of design it in such a way that it is much more approachable. So I think one of the things that if you think about Halo 2 is really amazing, ZK Snark is really amazing. But for example, a lot of things are very, very reliant because the protocol is so complex. It has a very heavy reliance on the ECC to put out fixes, to put out stuff, to do disclosures. Like, for example, when Zcash had a flaw in Sprout, that was live for 2 years, right? And then they only then disclosed it later, right? So, unless you kind of have a team that actually has cryptographic expertise that actually really built this stuff, you are kind of at the mercy of whoever is developing it, unless you develop your own cryptographic resources as well. So I do think that our privacy protocol, which is called Lelantus and now moving to Lelantus Spark, is actually a really interesting privacy protocol because it kind of bridges in between Monero and ZK Snarks, whereby we have very, very high anonymity sets, although probably not global anonymity sets where ZK Snarks, everything goes into this shielded pool. Actually, there is a kind of a technical limit, but most people say it's a global anonymity set. Our anonymity sets are probably in the range of 65,000, though we probably can optimize that to maybe go to 100,000, but not just yet. And what that means is that we probably have similar practical levels of privacy, though not theoretical, but it doesn't have trusted setup. It has a much, much simpler construction. It doesn't use any sort of zero, ZK circuits and stuff. It uses zero knowledge proofs, but it's very modular, like this ZK proof to hide this type of stuff. This ZK proof. So it's really modular. So there's kind of I guess you can say almost several, you can upgrade it first of all, right? You say, this component, I have something better, I can upgrade it, right? And it also makes security analysis a lot easier because you can examine the components thing. And it's also a lot, I guess it's it's like a fail safe, right? If this thing fails, there's this other stuff that still protects the privacy. So I do think that what we have, although it's quite technical, is a very competitive privacy protocol. And it's one that we are one of the few projects with the capabilities to actually develop this type of stuff, which is quite rare. Obviously, we have also other stuff one of the things that Zcoin or Firo did was we in 2018 our blockchain hosted the world's first large-scale political elections in Thailand, where the Democrat Party actually used our blockchain to run its primary elections to elect who should be the leader of the Democrat Party. And this was a nationwide thing, right? 127,000 votes cast on our blockchain. That's wow. Pretty huge. I don't think we've seen anything of that scale, right? Obviously, it wasn't that covered in the news. A lot of people didn't believe us, even though we had independent reports. And because we were a small coin, the people didn't believe it. But it was a really, really interesting. We probably can talk more about that. It was a really interesting thing. And now we've actually used our Lelantus technology and built a e-voting protocol that can be useful for Firo, but it also has further implications for other type of DAO structures where you have coercion resistance, you have voter anonymity, but verifiable, right? Because you want to know that, yes, the votes are properly counted and stuff, and properly you can check whether your vote, as the user can say, oh yeah, I know that my vote hasn't been altered, right? But at the same time, no one can de-anonymize those votes. And I think that's really, really important, because that's how real elections are held, right? Like paper ballots and stuff like that. You have to have voter anonymity, or else you're going to have kind of like fake governance. And we also hide ballot progress. You can't see how the vote is progressing. But a lot of these DAO voting protocols don't have privacy, doesn't hide ballot progress. It's just pure coin voting. You can see how everyone votes and who is voting for what. So we're also developing this type of technologies. And the newest thing that we kind of developed is called SPATs, which is an extension of Lelanter Spark. It's called Spark Assets. And that whole idea is that we want to be not just a privacy coin, but almost like a privacy infrastructure layer, where we're kind of like the Tornado Cash for everything, right? You can bridge like USDC or DAI, whatever, into our chain, anonymize it and use our privacy features, or create your own, privacy meme coin, right? And the best thing about this SPATs thing is that it hides the asset type. So what it means is that when you see something goes on the blockchain, you don't even know that it's USDC or USDT or whatever privacy Shiba coin that is being transacted on our layer. It's all appears the same, which means that every transaction increases the anonymity of every other asset on the chain. So these are things that we're really we're really diving into like the really hard cryptographic guts of stuff. And I think like Firo is one of the very few projects, even though we're quite small, we have the capabilities to do this. And I think our work is actually very well respected. Like currently, like Monero, they're using, they are talking about something called Seraphis, which is their scaling solution to increase their ring sizes to 128 or 256 or something like that. And a lot of the ideas behind it and the constructions actually came from Lelanter Spark. It was actually our work. That's why the things look quite similar. But yeah, it's good to see that our work has like real world, it's really affecting things in the real world. And it's actually kind of gave birth to a whole new family of coins, like even Beam, which is another privacy coin. Like Mimblewimble has this issue with what we call transaction graph protection, meaning you can see A, transfer to B, transfer to C, transfer to D. Mimblewimble isn't really good at protecting the transaction graph. So Beam took our technology, Lelantus, and adapted it for Mimblewimble and called it Lelantus Mimblewimble. And that is also from it's kind of spawned from our innovations as well. So I guess we're kind of like the movers and shakers in the background, having a real alternative to, ZK Snarks, Ring CD. There's nothing wrong with all those things, but I think it's good to have diversity because, if one stuff fails, you have other stuff to back up with. And I think there is value in having kind of simple cryptography that enables very, very high privacy and can be upgraded in the future. Doesn't have trusted setup, doesn't have any fancy moon math or anything like that. I think there is value in that. Yeah.
Yes. No, I would agree with you on that. And just on the privacy, is it private by default?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So good question. So when we started, Zerocoin did not allow private by default because it was designed as a thing for Bitcoin, right? And you have to keep that transparent layer. And the initial idea that we had was you burn and then you redeem, right? And therefore, when you redeem, you can kind of have some supply auditability, right? That time, zero knowledge proofs and all this was kind of scary, right? And therefore, we thought it was important to have some supply auditability, and it actually saved us a few times because we could notice the flaws being exploited, right? Obviously, we want most of our transactions to be moving to the privacy transactions, and that is happening in stages. Right now, all our default wallets, our mobile wallet, our desktop wallet, all anonymized by default, right? But obviously, there's still the transparent layer for certain components like the masternodes, which we already have a new protocol called Helsing that would allow it to be privacy staking, but it takes time to implement. And we also have this plan whereby we want all our mining transactions to automatically go into shielded things. So that means the anonymity set with every block is increasing that anonymity set. So we are approaching it in phases. We're moving it into privacy by default, but because we have inherited all this other stuff, it's a phase thing. And in a way, I think it is wise, especially when you're building your own privacy protocol. Even Zcash with the best cryptographers in the world suffered a live bug that was on for 2 years. and they could only kind of like ensure that there was no inflation by having the turnstile, which is, getting out of the pool, getting into the new shielded layer. And that kind of transparent layer allowed them to audit the supply and continue and to move on. Because you're building the privacy protocol is a lot of work and a lot of things that you can get wrong. So obviously, once the technology matures, everything and whatnot, we're going to go like privacy by default. But right now, especially with Spark, what we'll be doing is all our wallets kind of like hide the transparent layer. Whether the exchanges want to adopt it or not is the second question. But what we will do is to allow exchanges to withdraw directly to the shielded, or what we call Spark addresses. That means like, exchanges, after all, you're not going to expect any sort of privacy. They know your identity and all of that, right? And one thing that people kind of underestimate is that for centralized exchanges, sometimes it's good to know how much they have in their wallets. Because like you see Monero, right? I don't know if you've seen the recent drama when Monero's like, maybe the exchanges are operating a fractional reserve because we can't see what's happening inside there. While for us, if they're kept inside there, we can say, yes, Binance has this amount in those things, and they should be open about their holdings, right? Because they are holding it on behalf of customers. So I do think there is some value there, especially in the transition thing, and it does kind of like reduce the chances of centralized exchanges having fractional reserves. But of course, it's an argument and it's a trade-off, right? So this is one of the things that I really am quite anal about. Like don't be a maximally, don't say like my way or the highway. Everything has trade-offs, right? You just have to pick which one you're comfortable with. And this is kind of the trade-off that we are experiencing. So we want kind of like privacy for all the users and everything. Exchanges, whether they want to adopt it or not, we'll think about it later. But, most of the transactions would be in the privacy thing. And because of the way our privacy works, like similar to the thing, it's not so dependent on having large, like, even if like 80-90% or even like 50-60% of the transactions are in the private layer, that already improves privacy a lot because the anonymity set is always growing. Unlike something like Ring CT where you kind of have the sample. Well, it gets technical, so let's not get into that. But yeah,
too technical. But I get it, right? Because with each transaction, it gets more and more anonymous. And for people watching, it's if you think of it as a haystack, and you've got to find a needle. And the larger the anonymity set, the haystack is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it becomes even harder to find the needle.
I actually have I'm quite famous for this analogy about farting in a lift. Have you heard about it? Would you like to hear it?
I can't say no now, right?
Right. So like, with Bitcoin transactions, right, is you're the only one in the lift, you let out a fart. It's like, yep, Reuben's the one who farted, right?
Right.
Monero's kind of like, okay, I go into the lift, I drag 10 other people into the lift with me, and I let out a fart. It could be one of these 11 people, right? That's how it works, right? Mimblewimble said, let's find everyone who wants to fart and group them all together, and we all fart together, and all our farts are intermingling with each other. That's how their privacy works, right? And how our systems work, like, especially like with Firo, right? It's like you go into the lift, you can fart, and you can just make it disappear, right? And at any time in the future, you can choose to make it appear. So what that means is that your anonymity set or your plausible deniability is not just with the people who were in the lift with you. It was anyone who had entered the lift before. So obviously that anonymity set is much greater because this is the way we approach your privacy. So we think that this is a superior model. But yeah, I thought it was a very easy, a bit crude way, but you get it, right? Like you understand the trade-offs. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay, now you've mentioned that this is a hybrid, proof of work and Masternode. Therefore, it's a staking coin. I imagine it's resistant to 51% attacks.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. So tell us about staking. What's the return on staking? How does somebody become a Masternode?
Right. First of all, I really hate the word Masternode. Like we should just change it to something called service node or something like that, because it kind of implies that this node is lord over the others, which it is, and it's just a component in the ecosystem. So we'll probably change that soon, right? But Masternodes are basically, they require 1,000 Firo, right? So it's to prevent it's like Cyber attack resistance. You don't want someone to spin out 1 million nodes, right? You have to have some sort of Firo backing the masternode so that you can't create like nodes out of thin air, right? So they are like semi-trusted, right? So let's say if you control half the master nodes and you attack the chain, you're kind of like screwing your own investment as well, right? Yeah. And right now the return's about 11 to 12% per annum. So it's like, moderate or so. It's not like super amount, but it's quite decent. And all you need is like a basic VPS and an IP address. You register, and the good thing about our type of like masternode infrastructure is that the collateral itself is kept. You can keep it in cold storage. It doesn't have to be exposed to the internet. You just have to do a special type of signature to show that, yes, this node is tied to my collateral. So you don't have to actually expose your collateral and put it up for risk. So that's a cool thing. As to how the masternodes kind of protect against 51% attacks without getting too technical, is that, mining is just like, whoever has the more accumulated hash rate, the more, computing power can take over the chain, right? And they can reorganize it as far back as they want, right? That's fair. And of course, Pirate Chain uses some sort of checkpointing using the Komodo depower system, right? Which they then rely on the notary nodes in Komodo and also the Litecoin blockchain. So it's like you have to have those notary nodes and all this sort of thing. We obviously prefer to have kind of like a self solution that we're not reliant on other people's infrastructure. So the masternodes, they actually automatically form quorums of 400 masternodes. So there's right now about 4,000 plus masternodes, and in kind of like a semi-random but deterministic fashion, they will form themselves into little quorums that will last for several hours. And at any one time of these 400 members, there's like 4 quorums of them existing. And based on the block, it's almost like semi-random. One of these quorums will be picked to say, okay, take a look at this block. Which is the one that you saw first, right? And whichever block that they saw first, all the masternodes will then start voting and say, oh, I saw this block first. And as long as 60% pass, they will do a special type of signature that will say, this is the only block that we will recognize. Therefore, once that is locked in, the moment the block is already locked, right, there cannot be any more reorganization. So a block is final once it is confirmed, right? That means, so you cannot 51% attack it. So even let's say you manage to bring down the masternodes, you can only reorganize the chain up to the last chain lock or the last checkpoint or so. And obviously, the moment the masternodes come online again, let's say you're attacking and come there and they start checkpointing, but you cannot reorganize again. So that means to mount any sort of attack, you will need to first bring down or take over sufficient masternodes, and then also take the hash rate to do the reorganization. So it's quite a big, big thing to do to try and attack our chain. Yes.
It sounds like it's not worth it. Go get a smaller chain that doesn't have this protection. Okay. Yeah. Now, you've been going for a while.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. I mean the project, not you, Reuben. Sorry. Oh, right. Why haven't more people heard about Zcoin or Firo? And what have you got coming up next? And how are you going to address that?
Right. I do think the reasons it's been multifactorial, right? I do think that we kind of got left behind at the last bull run because we had a really toxic seed investor that was trying to take over the project. He was not one of the original seed investors, but because remember, our founder ran away with all the money, and so we had to find someone else to give us a little bit of money so that we could continue. This was out of my control. I was just a community manager then, and this was like, I wouldn't have done it, but I inherit what has happened, right? And what happened was this guy, he really wanted to centralize ownership. And in a way, sometimes if you take a look at projects, the projects that kind of do the best are the centralized, like where you have big whales owning huge chunks of the supply, because then they are motivated to move the price, right? And his idea was like, masternode should only be for rich and like wealthy and powerful people, and therefore they should up the masternode requirement by 5 to 10 times, so that only me and my friends and the people with serious financial backing can actually be part of this. And he also wanted to implement masternode voting, because that meant that masternodes basically rule and they earn the name master, right? Because they can vote everything into to make it their thing. And we were like, look, that sounds really bad, right? And I didn't want to say no to him directly, so I was like, look, let's have the community vote on it. And obviously, most of the community was like, screw this crap, right? and he was very, very upset. He and his friends had amassed, this was like all through legitimate means. He had amassed about maybe like 20% of the supply. So that's a lot, right? And what he did was he strategically dumped on us for a whole year.
Wow.
So like whenever we release anything on new privacy protocol, he'll dump on us. We did a rebrand, dump on us. Anything good that happened, dump on us. And as a result, a lot of people lost hope, right? They were like, yeah, you know, this is like a never-ending dump fest. And understandable, right? And we felt kind of powerless, right? Because we didn't blacklist his coins or whatever like that. We could have done that because he was kind of dumb. He puts all his coins in one wallet and doesn't use the anonymization functions. But that was kind of against the spirit, right? Like how, if we can say this guy is toxic and we block him, you know, that sets a really dangerous precedent. So we just had to let him dump on us for an entire year. And after that, just a week before we implemented that 51% attack protection, someone rented a GPU farm to 51% attack us. Wow. And that was like a double whammy right after the dump. And we were like, of course, we don't have evidence, but we felt like who would be so motivated to screw us over? Because the 51% attack ended up not benefiting the attacker. So he was spending like millions of dollars because he also acquired the coins to double spend. And that means he had millions of coins to double spend. And he was like, it didn't make economic sense to do an attack like that because it also hurt him. And he didn't anonymize. He placed it in one wallet. We're like, maybe it's the same guy, right? Of course, we have no evidence. It's just circumstantial. But just like, why would anyone do this, right? And that also, like, you know, caused a lot of people being upset about it. And let's face it, right? Privacy coins as an entire space, if you compare them to dot coins or DeFi or NFT or metaverse coins, we haven't done that well. You know, I mean, most of us haven't done well. So as a space, we haven't done well. We had this really toxic seed investor. And obviously, you know, people aren't going to be like, you know, I'm going to stay here and get dumped on. But thankfully, I think he's dumped all his coins for about maybe a year now, right? You know, now we have the chain locks protection and everything. And now we are kind of like building back up. But this is what it is, right? This is what running a decentralized coin is, right? It's tough work.
You make a good point in there, Reuben, which privacy coins haven't done that well compared to DeFi and NFTs and metaverse and stuff. I do think privacy projects are going to have their day, given the amount of the increasing authoritarian rule all over the world.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I do think that it's also going to be double-edged, right? I do think that there will be more demand for privacy. Regulators and stuff would also be cracking down on us even more, which is really important that we need much more better DEX solutions, right? Like we were one of the like initial partners and like biggest supporters of Atomic DEX. We have the branded Firo DEX, which I think Pirate Chain is also working for integration there as well. You know, I mean, like Trade is fine, you know, but it is still a centralized exchange. Obviously, it is better to have, you know, a decentralized infrastructure, and then that has been a big focus for us. So went off a bit off topic.
If someone wanted to get Firo, they can get it off Atomic DEX, off Trade
Binance, Huobi, Bittrex, 8, CoinEx, MXC. We have a lot of good centralized exchanges. Of course, you know, we also on all the major like swap services like ChangeNow, Changely, SwapZone, and all of that. You can do that without KYC for the most part. There's also so those are, I guess, the main ways to do it. We are trying to explore better ways to do it. We also have a Binance wrapped version on BSC. Now, obviously that doesn't have privacy, but you know, you can do all the DeFi stuff. You can do and buy on PancakeSwap and stuff like that. But you still need to use Atomic DEX to swap between the native and the BEP20 Firo, which you can do very quickly and very minimal slippage. So that's a great use case for Atomic or Firo DEX. So yeah. Right. Okay. Oh, I forgot to actually share, because you mentioned like, what can people be excited about, right? So
that was my next question. What's next?
Right. So obviously we were very deep in development of the Atlantis Spark, right? We did all the cryptographic libraries, we did all the paper and everything is audited and all stuff. Now we're doing the implementation of the wallet, and we definitely expect to release it sometime this year. So that's the really biggest, this is like the biggest improvement to our privacy and the protocol we're really, really proud of. that we are set to implement it sometime this year. We also have the Elysium layer, which is, basically this tokenization layer that we have this partnership with something called .oracle, where we can bridge coins from BSC, from Ethereum, from Moonbeam, or many different chains. You can bridge stable coins over and anonymize it using our Elysium layer, and basically have like a private stable coin and whatnot, but it's actually kind of backed, not really backed, but it's not like an independent stable coins, like I'm bridging USDT over, I'm bridging DAI over, or something like that. So you can have private stable coins of existing versions of stable coins. So that'll be pretty interesting as well. So we're really excited about that. There's also a few talks about potential mergers and corporations into a bigger privacy ecosystem. Obviously, that is a very, very big plan to have, because we're like, look, I don't know whether being a privacy coin is enough. I mean, it is really useful, and we're not going to abandon that, but it'll be so much better if we can be part of a huge privacy ecosystem, or, where privacy is also a service as well, right? Privacy as a service. And that's kind of the idea behind Elysium. But we're like thinking, look, we cannot be building our ecosystem from scratch and competing against people like Avalanche or people with ICO money that can throw like $100 million in an ecosystem fund, right? We have to leverage off their systems and provide privacy in all these other chains, and then be part of that. So there are some plans there. I don't have them in a very I don't have them in a way that I can disclose yet, because all of them are still in talks, right? It's not that we trying not to be transparent. It's like I want to present something that's fully fleshed out rather than just like bits and pieces. So this is why we haven't like revealed it. We have communicated this intention, but it's nothing confirmed yet. But that would be really big, and we should be starting one of the research goals under this path that would kind of show you like where we're going in the next couple of months. There is a big research on cross-chain bridges and all this sort of stuff that we'll be starting, and you can kind of see our vision there soon. So those are things that are really exciting. Like, Firo is not just becoming a privacy coin. We still don't abandon our roots and stuff. We still have all the good technology, the instant send, the instant finality of all of that stuff, right? Because like any transaction we send is final within a couple of seconds. So that's really good, right? Like even though our block times are 5 minutes, because of the way that we use our Masternode and chain lock technology, all transactions, once it's locked, is final. That means I don't have to worry about double spends or stuff within a couple, like 10, 15 seconds or so. So that's pretty cool.
That is very, very good. That will make a big, big difference. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I'm going to have all the links in the description below so people go and check this out. Reuben, is there anything else you want to let us know that we haven't covered?
Well, of course, we talked about that ARrr voting system, which we are also building a proof of concept. That we haven't figured out a way to monetize it yet, but we see it as a way to kind of build a Firo DAO, right? Like, some sort of a way that we can have a more fair governance and voting on stuff. We are still working out the actual, like, we have all the cryptographic details, but like, who should be the voters, right? What should be the quorum? These are much tougher things to solve, right? But there is an ongoing, very hotly debated poll right now on what should the allocation of our block reward be, right? Because right now it's like 50% miners, 35% Masternode, 15% to the development team. Now there's been some talk about creating a separate community fund where now the community gets rewards from the block reward and then can fund stuff on their own accord, which is quite powerful, because the core team doesn't want to be. One of the problems of having a development reward is that everyone expects us to do it, right? But now we can do all the really hard cryptographic work and stuff like that. But for like promotions, for exchange listing, for liquidity provision, the community fund can be very powerful in all these type of things, and that people they can go ahead and develop on Firo. And we think that's a really good start to decentralize Firo, because eventually, hopefully, there'll be no more dev fund. It'll be just all community fund, right? And we have to take baby steps to get there and start training them, learning, and having good discourse, understanding the problems. So I think it's a very important step, and there's an ongoing poll which has about 2 weeks left, and it'll be really exciting to see how that goes. Yeah.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Anything else you want to let us know?
No, I think I think I've already kind of like given information overload.
But it's good because I like to think of these interviews, they are like audio-visual white papers. Nobody reads anymore, but they can really get into depth with a project. Not too technical, but then they can go and, go join the Telegram group or go, read up the stuff on the website and investigate for themselves, which I invite you all to do. Reuben, thank you so much. It's been great having you on. And anybody who's watching, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the description below. If you own Firo, or if you want to own Firo, or even if you don't own Firo, give me the ticker symbol for Firo, which is Firo, or give me any ticker symbol as a comment, because that helps my channel grow. If you're watching this on YouTube, shame on you, because you've missed it. You've missed because it was posted on Odyssey first. And also, please come and support my work on Odyssey. Follow me on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, and join my official Telegram announcements channel. Reuben, thank you so much. And between now and when I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with crypto profits. This is Crypto Rich and Crypto Reuben signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.